If you're at a point in life where you're looking to make some changes, but perhaps you're thinking that it's too late because you're too old, then I'm here to tell you, as somebody who has changed their life multiple times throughout their lives and is still doing so, that it's definitely not too late. And in this video, I'm going to go through some tips for how you can reset your life, whether you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, or beyond. So the first tip is acceptance. During my 44 years on this planet, I've reset my life a number of times, whether it's been a breakdown in a relationship, a change of career, moving to a different part of the country, or even a combination of those things happening all at once. What's really helped me in those moments is to accept where I am at that moment in time. And that doesn't mean to say it makes me feel better, but rather than struggling with the reality of what's happening, I come to an acceptance of this is what's happening. Because the problem is, if we try to hold on to how things used to be, we'll become stuck in life. Now, sometimes people assume the word acceptance means a sort of a resignation of just sort of putting up with the way things are. But for me, it's a real active position to be in. It's an acknowledgement of what's happening. And once you're able to acknowledge and accept what's happening, it opens you up psychologically to the possibilities of how life can be different and what you can do about it. So certainly don't deny the feelings that you feel about the situation. Honor those feelings, and then you can start taking actions that align with your personal values, the things that you really want out of life, and the person that you want to be now. The next tip is to trust in yourself. There are mixed findings in the research when it comes to trusting our intuition and that gut feeling, and whether this is a good way to make decisions. And whilst I wouldn't rely solely on the gut feeling in all situations, I personally think that it can alert us to whether or not we're living in alignment with our personal values and the things that are really important to us in life. You've probably had the feeling where you've been presented with an opportunity of some sort or some information and you're really excited about it because it taps into your passions and your personal values. But equally, you've probably had times where you've been presented with a situation, a potential situation, or some information where you felt hesitant or uncomfortable because something just doesn't feel right about it. And that's probably because it's jarring against your personal values. And alongside using that gut feeling, I do think it's important that we weigh up the pros and cons of a situation when we're trying to make decisions. If you're thinking about making a big life change, then it's probably not a good idea to just throw caution to the wind and not think through it properly. And of course, it's worth remembering that even calculated risks won't eliminate all risks in life. With any change comes an element of risk, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't take any risks. The next tip is to take small steps. I'm a bit of an all or nothing person in my thinking and in my doing. I used to think that when it came to making changes, I had to dive in with both feet, otherwise it wasn't worth doing. However, if you're feeling uncertain about this reset in your life, then taking a few small steps just to sort of test the waters and dip your toe in is a great way to start building your confidence and then start building that momentum towards the bigger changes. The key is to take these small steps consistently over time. This is something that James Clear talks about in his book Atomic Habits, which I'll link to down in the description. So if you take these small steps consistently, this gives you time to adjust things. If things aren't going the way you want them to, you can review them regularly, think about what you need to tweak, and then carry on in the direction you're going. And of course, at any time you feel that the steps that you're taking aren't for you or the path that you're going on isn't for you, you can stop and maybe have a rethink. The next tip is don't subscribe to society's narrative. I've noticed, certainly more in Western cultures, that age, growing old, comes with negative connotations. And I will say maybe more so for women than for men. Some people feel they become more invisible as they reach a certain age, or that they become less useful in society. I remember that someone I knew wanted to take a short course in a subject that interested them. And when I said they should go for it, they dismissed it and said that they were too old and it's too late for them. And I just found that really sad. We don't lose the ability to learn new things as we get older. Granted, it might take a bit more effort because of our age, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it if we really want to. And just because we're of a certain age and we're getting older, it doesn't make it any less valid for us to want to try new things. The next tip is to find your new path. I spent many years studying really hard, working towards a career because I thought it would make me happy. And I'm not saying that studying hard hasn't worked out for me, because it has. But I realised that what I was chasing through the success of that studying was trying to compensate for feelings of low self-worth. But once I realised this, I stopped striving. I was was able to sort of let that go and bring my focus more onto finding meaning in my life. So doing things for the meaning and the fulfillment rather than to gain any sort of accolade or sense of being more worthy. The path isn't always clear, and sometimes I think the path can unfold as we walk along it rather than being laid out before we even step on it. There's this really good article which I will link to down in the description by Henrik Carlson, who talks about how things have turned out well in his life. And he talks about 3 main things that he did or he drew upon. And the first one was paying attention to the things that he liked to do and doing more of that. The next part of it is that he kept iterating. So he paid attention to the context, removing the things that frustrated him, and maybe this was people, maybe this was environments, but then expanding on the things that helped him to feel alive. And the third part, which I found most interesting, was that he says he looked up and noticed that his life was nothing like he imagined it to be, but it fit him. So I guess the danger is that if we try and visualize our new path and we become too fixed on that, then we might actually miss out on where we're meant to be. But if we flow with the things that we're attracted to, if we're pulled towards doing certain things that interest us, and maybe we don't necessarily question, well, why am I doing it? But just tuning into the fact that you do enjoy it and you get something out of it. See where that takes you, rather than thinking, this is my vision for my ideal life, so therefore I need to do this, this, this. So the path may not be laid out in its entirety when you step onto it. Whilst that might be a bit anxiety provoking for some people because it comes with uncertainty, it's also quite beautiful really, because we get to pave our path as we go along by tuning into how we feel about doing certain things. And now one major life reset that happened not so long ago came about through a desire of not wanting to have any regrets when I come to the end of my life. It was about living in a way that was true to myself, and I couldn't have done it without drawing on the philosophy of slow living. And if you want to find out what I did and how I did it, then check out the video that's on the screen. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.